Recording. Great. Okay. Well, welcome to the PAC Spaces podcast. First in a while is May the 4th, which for Star Wars fans, which is maybe we'll understand. Yeah, it was also, I think, quite an important date in Star Wars history. But regardless of that, that's probably that does to an extent relate to what we're talking about, because during lockdown, I imagine lots of people have been watching a lot of films, which we could maybe touch on at some point. But anyway, this podcast will be about the subject of how the lockdowns have or have not affected people's minds, how they deal with things. I know some people, I know of people who actually have benefited from it, have enjoyed it, but most people, I think, have struggled quite a lot in different ways. So, I'm Tristan, the main host, here with Nick and Lawrence as usual, and my co-host. And please welcome to the team our two newest members, Michael and James, who are here tonight.
Hi.
And obviously, our usual format will still remain the three of us, as obviously in terms of podcast, as James and Michael have other things they're doing, and obviously, realistically, 5 people wouldn't be able to interview, other people over time. But that's okay. It's really great they're here tonight, because this is a topic we can all relate to specifically, I think, and very strongly. And James has done amazing work in promoting it and finding people and stuff from people. And Michael has a bit as well, I believe. I don't know. I believe Nick has a couple of bits as well. I'm not sure about Lawrence, but this is great. So shall we begin with the questions? Unless you guys got anything you want to talk about first.
Hey, might as well crack on.
Let's crack on.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
so the first question basically is, how did you deal with the first lockdown? Now, obviously, this was, I actually don't even remember exactly when it was. Was it February last year? End of February? It was March.
It was towards the end of March.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to go last, since I'm the main host. Seems only fair. So I'd like James and Michael to go first, actually. You guys can each share your experiences.
Yeah, sure.
I'm giving you a couple of minutes each at most.
Yeah,
no problem. I suppose, with the first sort of lockdown, I really just I tried my best to communicate with people online, because, for example, Michael, we were communicating quite heavily online.
Yeah, we were working on a film project.
Yeah, and then everything fucked up, and that didn't happen. So great,
So sounds like a good laugh,
Yeah, it was such a laugh having everything cancelled.
Yeah, I was I was really scared of how I was going to do with my parents at the time, because I really didn't get on with them. But luckily, I went for walks down the Hogsmill Walk and liked wildlife photography, so that kept me sane. So that was really good. I've got I'm hoping to make the photos into a book or something.
Great. So just to clarify, so you guys were already collaborating and stuff back then in the first lockdown?
Before the lockdown.
Right. So during the lockdown, you still continued to hang out because that was what was happening, and so you didn't feel too isolated. Is that basically?
Yeah, we had
trouble
in between us. So
that's really good. I should have done that earlier. That's really good, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it really helps with your mental health if you can actually talk to people on the regular as well.
And in person, right? Were you able to see each other in person too during all this?
We eventually did, didn't we? Bubbled up 2 or 3 months into it.
Okay. Yeah. So to begin with, you were just by yourselves, basically.
The first 2 months, but we were communicating over the web, weren't we?
Yeah. True.
Okay. I mean, that's really good. I think if you guys are done with that answer, we'll move on to Lawrence.
Yeah.
Oh, well, interestingly enough, the day lockdown began, the first one, I got ill. So I don't know if it was COVID or not, but I was ill for about 8 days. So I wouldn't have gone out anyway.
I remember that, Lawrence. Yeah,
I've done anything anyway. So I kind of just entered lockdown in my own personal lockdown. So in a way, it was quite easy initially, and then when the illness went away, I was just sort of doing workouts, going for runs. I live with family, so I think it was a bit easier for me just to have family members to chat to.
Yeah.
I think that was very helpful. And then, for about a month or two, I was quite strict with not going out or seeing people, and then I slowly started getting the inkling of, it'd be nice to see someone face to face.
Definitely.
And then I think over time it was it just trickling back into socializing. But for the first month, I found it quite easy to handle. And And then, from then on, I was kind of really feeling the urge to get back out there and do stuff. So I got a frisbee, a football, and played some sports on the park.
You were at your parents' place, weren't you, Lawrence?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so in Richmond, I've got like 6 to 8 people living in the house at a time, so I'm blessed with company, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was all right. I think just putting a lot of the things on the back burner that I like to do, like, you know, playing with bands and going to poetry nights and stuff. That was more of a difficult adjustment.
I mean, we ended up doing this on Zoom.
Then this was really something we embraced as
an outlet, really.
As a consequence of that, really.
For the collective, yeah, we literally managed to make this work well, you know, during all the first lockdown as well, and it's been a staple ever since. So, okay, thank you, Lawrence. That was really, really interesting. Nick?
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat as Lawrence, really. I kind of enjoyed it. I was glad to have the free time, and especially on a creative level, I was able to get my head into a load of projects that are kind of I used to try and designate a couple of hours at the weekend when I had some spare time off, and I wasn't either not in the right frame of mind or just, you know, thinking about other things. So it was good to have all that kind of cerebral sort of freedom. Mm-hmm. And get a load of creative things that have been junking up my mind for years out onto the paper and in various other formats. Obviously, the whole social thing was a bit of a nightmare, you know, because I like going to gigs and stuff like as much as the next man. And but it was like, okay, I'll just make my own entertainment, which I was able to do. So for me, it was nice to have that much freedom. The only time I usually get that much sort of freedom is after I've had an operation, which we just had, obviously, or you know, I'm on holiday. I've gone away for 3 months somewhere. So I was actually spiritually, I was able to find myself in a much better place than I had in a long while. I was able to concentrate on that, and you know, obviously, like a year before that, or even that, 6 months before that, I was buried my father, which had been a kind of a difficult one, but yeah, it gave me that time to sort of kind of come to terms with a lot of things and be more creative.
Yeah, I think I'd agree that initially that all the free time felt like a blessing.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, you never get this normally. Like, life's moving so quickly and everything.
Even like just watching TV and stuff, and someone said, usually someone will say to me at work or in passing, "Oh, watch this other day, it's really good." And you think, yeah, and I've got on my notes on the phone, I've got loads of things that I've written down, like books I wanted to read and films someone had told me to see and all that. And it was able to get rid of that sort of clutter. Okay, I'll have a look at that. Someone's recommended that. I might not have liked it, I might have liked it, but I still gave it the chance and I had that time. Whereas before, time was always so precious to me. It's like, oh, I've finished work, I've got to do this, eat, blah, blah, blah. I'm running around, and that kind of
you get
okay. I mean, talking of time, I think that's roughly about the 3 minutes. Thank you, Nick. That's actually really interesting. So I'm gathering, since I'm going to move on to my answer now, that all of you found it wasn't that big a struggle mentally from what you said. So for me, that was the biggest thing. Immediately, it was a really big mental struggle. So as most of you know, like, I do this, I manage this to an extent with the help of Nick and Lawrence and now you guys, which is great. But apart from this, the PAC, I haven't really got anything else. I have severe problems with, I have OCD, I have executive function disorder, and I have autism right there. Quite, you know, I'm different, I'm unique, and I'm also struggle with things. So for me, it was incredibly frustrating and really difficult right from the start. I didn't benefit from it in any way. And in fact, my mental health went severely downhill. I would argue, I mean, possibly, I don't even know how much worse it became. I think, being told you can't go and see people whilst you live alone in a place which you find difficult to live in and where you can barely manage things anyway, and then, you know, you can't even really see your parents beyond like the conservatory, and even now I'm talking it this way, it's just like, it makes you feel like there's nothing but you. It's just you, your reality. Yeah. And that is terrifying, actually, for someone who overthinks like I do. So obviously, I'm very lucky. I was able to do this stuff at least. We could do some really cool podcasts, and we kept going. And we did get through it. You know, I'm not going to be being negative, but I'm being realistic. Our honest answer is that, it was really, really difficult. But the one blessing of it was this, that we started using Zoom to do a podcast, and it's proven to be much more effective than trying to do podcasts, in person. Obviously, at some point we'll go to that. I think Nick's got a studio now or something, but right now, as it stands, that was the one benefit. But in general, I can bounce back from things, but it's really strange when it's like you're supposed to be isolated. It's really weird. That's my answer. So I think, but I want to move on to the other question. So that's basically, I think we will discuss this after. The next question was how you saw the lockdowns, because obviously this wasn't just one. We had, technically speaking, only 2 apparently, but it felt like 3 to my mind. So the question is, did you, and we'll start again with James and Michael, did you see the lockdowns as a reasonable and necessary reaction to COVID-19, or did you see it as really unnecessary, or do you have a different view that's somewhere in between that? So that's basically the question: how you saw it, whether you saw the necessity of the whole thing.
Well, one of the things I would say was some measures maybe were sensible, but at the same time, I think a lot of it was done far too late. And also a lot of the sensible measures that should have been taken, for example, shutting down a lot of the travel routes and things like that, because obviously we've got 50 billion different cases of like COVID-19 from like Brazil or Nigeria or these other places, South Africa, like all sorts of places. Like, I think it's kind of becomes a bit of a joke after a while, to be fair. And the government are clearly like a complete laughing stock at this point,
It's always been that. A lot of people from my experiences say they blame the government as well.
Wait, so you were saying you saw it as both, so did you see them being like, they were being too extreme or not extreme enough, or kind of both?
Not extreme enough for me.
It's okay. I would say that.
Yeah.
It's very difficult because there were so many things that the government did wrong from the start.
But at the same time, you could argue that obviously there's the whole sort of how the isolation affects certain people. There's that as well. So it's how you balance that out. This is kind of the whole point, isn't it? It's difficult.
And to be fair, we haven't been faced with anything like this for a long while. Yeah. And being that it's a respiratory disease, we had the AIDS virus and we've had Ebola and stuff like that. But as a planet, we haven't really been affected by anything so sort of that happened so fast. To be fair, it did happen fast, and it's like, what are you going to do? Shut down the complete economy on a kind of a gamble, because no one knew at that stage how quick it was developing and how quick it was mutating, and what the effects were. So it's kind of you're trying to think on your feet. They did make the wrong decisions. They should have closed the borders a lot earlier on.
So, James and Michael, are you basically done with that question? Have you answered what you feel you could?
Yeah.
Okay, so Nick was starting to talk anyway. So if you want to go next, Nick, I know we're not really doing an order. We'll go to Lawrence next, if that's okay. Yeah. Nick, do you want to continue?
I think that obviously the lockdown was a reasonable thing to do. I think maybe it could have started earlier.
Yeah.
And like I said, we should have shut the borders and stopped all flight in and out of the country, and that would have helped a long way, because Italy were already suffering really badly before it hit our shores, and we should have seen that coming. But again,
they were saying as well, don't make the mistake of taking it not very seriously.
Yeah.
And then Boris was going, no,
it's serious at all.
The one thing I never really.
COVID patient. That'll do.
I don't want us to have too much interruptions, but I will quickly say that I am surprised by your answer, Nick, because I thought you were really against a lot of it, and especially when the numbers were actually very small, from what I understood. That's why I thought it was a bit irrational when the numbers are so small.
But to be honest, I'm against any freedom being taken away. Yeah, I'm against any freedom taken away, and essentially that's what a lockdown is. It's freedom being taken away for our perceivable own good, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Right. So you might not like it. If you might not like having to be locked in this room because there's a load of wild bears outside your house, but that's what you got to do in order to stay safe. Yeah.
So you saw it somewhere in between them, but yeah, I don't know. I just think
I don't know. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of face saving done on behalf of the officials in the government, and you don't really know what to listen to.
That's right, and you don't even know whether the science is being completely accurate all the time.
It was difficult. It was difficult for me because I hadn't known anyone who'd actually died from it or even had it. So it was difficult for me to be able to kind of say, well, I know so and so. It was only when we did the Patrick Dawes interview, and he'd had it, and then we did Spiros.
That was earlier, but yeah, Spiros.
And he'd had it as well. So, okay, well, there's two people I know.
Yeah.
But, it's difficult to equate. It's difficult to perceive what your actual threat to yourself is when, I don't even catch the flu or colds. I never get anything like that.
So, Lawrence, how did you see the lockdowns? The first in general.
I think of it in like two levels. Like, first of all, I know the government made a lot of mistakes, but I wouldn't have wanted to be in charge of it, to be honest.
I don't think anyone's
No.
It's not damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're going to piss off millions of people either way. So I think you can't really argue with the logic that if there's a virus going around that can kill vulnerable people, if none of you integrate, the virus can't spread. I think that's a fair enough piece of science, even though it's quite basic. I think just kind of not being selfish about it, because I'm a very sociable person. I like to go out, and so not having that was annoying, and I had all this kind of energy I wanted to go out and use. I think in a more altruistic sense, you have to kind of look out for the people who are in danger. Like, everyone here would probably get it and not feel much pain or illness, but it becomes real when you see it, I guess. And my mum was working in the hospitals, and it was quite a serious condition. But I think what annoyed me more was just the misinformation, like Nick said. And there's a lot of people speaking pseudo-scientifically without really knowing what they're talking about. Everyone suddenly thought they were a scientist, and like, that's all right if you want to kind of look into it, but if you're putting up kind of like self-righteous statuses on Facebook or like
so do you mean people who the naysayers who thought it was on?
I think just like the sort of holier than thou attitude you got, and there was a bit of a snitch culture. And like, if people want,
that's the opposite. Snitch culture is when people were like trying to get other people done for breaking rules. But
but what I'm saying is, like, people were protesting and they were all getting painted as like, scumbags, and
that's not right either. Yeah, exactly.
That's not right. Like, we have the right either way. Like, if people want to protest it, you can't write off the other argument.
Right. This is really interesting because so thank you, Lawrence. I mean, basically my take on it is this is the thing. It's like, but what you basically said, Lawrence, is exactly how I feel. Is that to an extent, it's like it's both. Like, we should have the freedom to do anything within reason, I believe. And the protests were really important, right? Being people trying to say you have to be really strict, follow all these rules just because we've been told it is too extreme, and I think that is a kind of misinformation. But at the same time, you also had people who would peddle misinformation about it online by just decrying the entire thing as a conspiracy, and that doesn't help either. It's an imbalance, and so from my perspective, my answer to this is that I think that obviously, if you look at what's happening in India now, I mean, there's actual images and videos. So obviously, it is really dangerous if it's unchecked. Although at the same time, I mean, they say it's like what was it, 350,000 in 24 hours, but that is out of a population of about 1 billion. So again, numbers are still quite small in a sense. Having said that, it's very obvious. It's very obvious that the people who are vulnerable were like often succumbing to it, and it's just not knowing. It was a not knowing where someone, and whether someone would get ill from it. I think that's why they took this really extreme thing, because it's like, that you never know what could happen. But then the same could be true of any virus. I think the reaction was fair enough, realistically, given that the media and the government and whatever did not actually know much about this virus. They didn't understand it, right? And they still don't really understand it, and they still don't really understand why it only affects certain people, right? So of course, naturally, in those situations, you have to do something quite extreme sometimes in order to, just try and keep some semblance of normality. They were scared, and I understand why they did it. So I understand why they did it. But I think it could have been handled differently, is how I see it.
They did it far too late.
Yeah,
a lot of the measures were just put in place far too late.
Because apparently, if they'd done it more quickly and sooner, we would have actually been able to come out of it more quickly.
Yeah,
that's what they say. I don't even know.
But again, you'd still have to wait for the production of the vaccine, which is the main reason we are coming out of it now, is because we managed to get on top of vaccine production and get it out there. Although, to me, it still seems a bit quick. Seems a bit of a hurried experiment, but I think I think
strange.
we have done that, and we pulled out all the stops regarding that, and getting people vaccinated. I'm not personally someone that's gonna get vaccinated any day soon, unless I absolutely have to. I don't feel particularly vulnerable or under threat, but I think if people want to do it for peace of mind, and then fair play, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, we've actually got a bit more time than I thought. So on the subject, before we move on to the next question, I was going to quickly say that it's the vaccine thing is a strange one, because I've been offered the vaccine a few times actually, and for various reasons I haven't taken it yet. But it's not because I'm not going to. I want to take the Pfizer one, but I want to make sure that I do so in a place, where I do it. I go out, I have it done, and then I come back to my parents' place or somewhere where I feel safe. Stay there for at least 6 hours to see what will happen, because I've heard some horror stories, and I'm not suggesting it happens to most people. So be very clear here. I'm not an anti-vax. I'm not trying to tell people to get it. I'm just being very clear here to say that I know that a very small number of people have got some symptoms. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I'm diabetic too.
I'm type 1. So
we're type 1. He's type 1.
We're type 1.
What happened, Michael? You're going.
I know you're type.
Yeah.
Michael, what was your?
I was saying type 2 because of my age. I'm very vulnerable, so I had to take it, and I've got my second one tomorrow. Yay!
Oh, okay.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So I mean, just basically to conclude that point, what I'm saying is that it's not. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I talk to people sometimes who are, and I understand their perspective though, and that's the thing. I'm not gonna. Yeah. I'm trying to be as objective as I can. I can see why they feel that way. Sometimes I can understand why they wouldn't trust something put up by Big Pharma, but at the same time, the fact of the matter is the vaccines do seem to be making a difference in the UK. So unless this everything we're seeing on the news is a complete illusion, and clearly there is some truth to it. So it's a hard one. It's very hard to get an exact answer. So I think
and historically, vaccines have been hit and miss.
Yeah,
there's a lot of trial and error. That's the whole point of a vaccine is trial and error.
Yeah.
Well, we have spent a lot of time on this question, so I think we'll move on to the next one now. But thank you guys, that was very interesting. So the next question is about the arts, which is what the PAC is all about. So I'll start again with James and Michael. So how did you feel your art, or as in like anything you do artistically, was affected by the lockdowns? Did it change from the first one to the second one, or did your method of expression change? Because very briefly, I was want to say on that point is that I guess it was a bit confusing having a lockdown, then it came back to normal, then another lockdown. So I don't know if that had different levels of effects on how you expressed them, anything you're doing with your art. But yeah, by all means, share with us.
Well, probably what I'd say in particular, and this is a couple of answers to this necessarily, but so one, I think the opportunity to share your art, while you have the online spaces and things like that, you can share art easily. Things like open mic nights, like film projects, all these things have been like obviously put on hold, and I feel like for a lot of people that has been so detrimental. Like a lot of people can't share their artwork as easily. They can share it online, sure, but there's not that sort of personal connection that you get from actually seeing live music, as you know.
Or anything live. Yeah.
It's just horrible, to be fair, to think about. And also film production. Obviously, a lot of people, you can't have masses of people on a set anymore because, I don't know tell you why. But a lot of stuff has been put on hold, unfortunately, and hopefully after the lockdown and after things are ceased, hopefully we might see some form of a renaissance in the arts. I mean, that's what I hope personally.
Maybe from very soon, hopefully. It's only like 2 months now until they apparently end up. The whole thing
is
crossed.
For me, it was a good opportunity to learn some new software like the storyboarder. And it was really good to learn new software and find out new software, and also got Facebook groups with like sound designers. So it was a good chance to chat to them about different things. And also I enjoyed like doing my wildlife photography. So it was.
This is taking positives. Taking positives from a potentially dire situation. So that I think everyone kind of had to do that. I mean, that's what I did. I said, well, I can't, what else can I do apart from kind of, do something that's stimulating and creative, and, just to, and read and watch stuff and learn.
Yeah.
Because if we're not learning, what are we here for?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
yes.
I'd be quite happy in prison, to be fair. I'll just read loads of books. I'd be over the moon, you know.
Yeah.
So, Michael, did you have anything else to add, or you?
I think that's mostly it. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, guys. That's good. I mean, it sounds like you managed to get on top of that, which is really good. Obviously, I suppose this is the thing. If you can find something to focus on, which is what we did, which I'll come to in a second. But I'm going to go in the reverse order again now, just for kicks, shits, and giggles, you know. So, Lawrence, how did you find like anything you did artistically was affected by lockdown? Obviously, we know that we did stuff with PAC and all, but I mean, it's different.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like your drumming and other projects you were doing, and just in general.
Yeah. Well, I think it was really because I'm in bands and you know, I do poetry nights and stuff like that. That all involves being in rooms with other people.
Yeah.
So that taken away was like, oh, okay, I've got to find some way to get the same stimulation without being with people. I think in terms of poetry and playing music, I was able to just kind of be in my own space, you know, come up with ideas that maybe were different to what I would have had outside of lockdown, because it was a whole new mental space to be in. So, you know, writing things down and playing the instrument itself didn't really take a hit. It was more the stimulation of doing it with other people.
Right.
You know, but I think just what really actually helped in a weird way was the excitement of, oh, we're going to get out of this like one day, and then we're going to have it all come back, and there's going to be a surge of creativity come from this.
Yeah.
So like the excitement for me it has been kind of inspiring me to be at the best of my ability when I can play again, you know. So it's like having the opportunity, like the other night on my birthday, Tristan, to play to people.
Yes.
That was almost 100 times better because I don't get it as much now. So
yeah, brief aside, the Red Line, they've reopened, and you did an outdoor gig, didn't you, last week, which is really nice. Yeah,
and I played with Noble, and it was only a few songs, but it was just great to play to a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I think what was it? You did like you did an extended drum solo, or did I imagine that? You did something pretty cool at one point.
Oh, thanks, mate. Well, I don't remember doing a drum solo, but
something weird happened. It was great. It was really just nice to see, and there were some great instruments. Those
are the best drum solos, the ones you don't remember.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, though, you found that it was you just managed to do some things by yourself, but it was
it's a mixed blessing, really. I think the thing that I'm going to take from it the most is it's going to feel even better when we get it back, and just kind of looking forward and not.
1 month to go. 1 month to go, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Lawrence. That's I mean, great stuff. Yeah, Nick, how did you find because I mean, obviously, as I said to Lawrence, we did stuff. But I mean, in terms of your own stuff, especially. And
I'm trying to write a novel at the moment, so it was good, obviously, to have all that time just to throw into that.
Wow.
And it was nice and sunny to boot as well, so I could write in my garden, in the sun, drinking wine. But yeah, I miss all the obvious things like the social aspect of going out and seeing bands and all that. But it kind of, again, it was just kind of introspective, kind of look at myself and not get disheartened by it, because if I was to let myself get down by those kind of restrictions and confinements, I will go mad. So I just generated the negativity into positivity, and that's it.
Well, great music comes from that as well.
And we did.
Yeah, I wrote loads of songs and stuff, and obviously all the stuff we did with the PAC and that, and I just kept myself busy, because usually I'll be doing all that same stuff, exactly the same sort of stuff, but trying to fit it around a work week and doing other stuff, and then cramming whatever kind of me time, creative time I had into a few spare hours at the weekend, and it was never a kind of way that was actually going to be fruitful,
not satisfying, basically.
So it was nice, and then I ended up waking up into a regime where I'd get up like I would for work, but actually start writing, have a bit of breakfast, bang, start writing.
And
it didn't matter if I wrote 2 words or 2,000, the fact that I made the time, and that was good for me.
It made kind of like a tectonic shift of what you were doing with your time, and it was actually better.
Yeah. But that's why I said earlier, if I went to prison, okay, even for murder I didn't commit, don't get me wrong, it would be bad, but I would find something to do with the time that was positive, you know.
Yeah, after something very negative, All right, well,
struggle.
It does. Well, thank you, Nick. That's really inspiring. Actually, it's good. So, in terms of the arts, my answer to this, well, obviously, as one of the main people behind the PAC, I and these two guys, Nick and Lawrence, decided together we'd begin doing podcasts, and we turned the open mics into a weekly thing called video forums, which have been mixed success. Sometimes not be that great, but sometimes quite interesting. One time we had one time we did have 9 people, I think. It was so. I think in terms of how it affected the art. So there's 2 different levels to this. So one was PAC stuff, which I think improved in a lot of ways actually, because we could do these podcasts. We had time to do that. We had time to do other things. In a sense, I will argue as well. One thing is that, given I've always struggled to work, and I'm still struggling to find something right now, apart beyond this, which is something I do with the support of you guys, which I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. For all our viewers, to be clear about that, I'm not going to hide that from people. I can do this because I have support, otherwise I wouldn't be able to do it. But I did feel less guilty. In a sense, I shouldn't feel guilty anyway, but I felt less embarrassed or strange about the fact that I struggled to work when everybody was having to work from home, as in the whole world or the whole of the UK. So to an extent, there were some positives there, which is true. In terms of PAC stuff, we did podcasts, we did video forums, which has been interesting and harder to get people to be fully involved in some things though. Surprisingly, you'd think it'd be much easier, but it's been quite difficult actually to get people to be really involved in online open mics because they're not the same again. And very briefly, in terms of my own art, I did release a music piece actually just before the first lockdown. Since then, I've been working on a lot of different things, and they've grown more introspective, more strange. That's all I can say. At some point, I will share them with you guys. But it is interesting. I think it does affect how you perceive the world. Like when you have more time to think, then your art can become much stranger. Basically, So it's just one of those things, I guess. It is strange, but it's really interesting to hear what you guys have to say about it as well. We've all had really different experiences as well, which I think is really interesting. So the next question. For a second. Okay. Well, it's basically the same as the previous one, so we'll try and keep this fairly brief. But for anyone who writes lyrics or poetry, did any of the lockdowns affect the way you wrote? Do you think you started to write things differently? Like anything creative, like when it comes to literary writing, so like written word. We'll start again with James and Michael, because I don't know if you guys ever write poetry at all.
I don't write poetry.
I do. So I'm a secret poet, I'll be honest. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it.
Okay, tell us.
I didn't know.
Well, essentially, I'd say the lockdown has given a lot of people the opportunity to sort of look inwards, as it were.
As I was saying, it's true.
Just analyze, your inner workings and things like that, and get out a piece of paper or write things down. One of the key issues that I've had is that I've written so much poetry, so many lyrics, and then I've broken my phone or lost my phone twice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, my masterpiece is gone. But I mean, in terms of that, in particular, I think so many people have been able to just come up with just the most random things, write it down on a piece of paper, write it down on your phone. And it's good to actually have that time to prepare this stuff, because typically previously, because everyone was in full flow and society was going on as normal, you didn't really get that time really. But I guess it's been good for that in that sense,
But did it affect any of your did it affect literally the way things you wrote about? It's kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think a lot of my writing became a lot darker because I was dealing with a lot of mental health struggles, basically. I'll probably get more into that in the next sort of question, basically. But
okay. All right, no, that's good.
I found writing a journal really helpful, and that's really good to express your emotions and stuff.
Yeah,
that's really been helpful.
But you didn't start doing that before. To clarify, that was something you started doing after lockdowns began. Is that right?
Yeah. I've been doing that since lockdown, definitely. The journal.
And that was a good way of coping with
with mental health and any stressful situations. It gets it out of your system rather than bottling it up.
Yeah, it's not good to do that at all. I don't think. If you bottle it up, then obviously you need to share these things with other people. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, nice one, guys. Thank you. Lawrence, how was your? Did you? I know you don't necessarily write that much poetry, but you did share a few poems during some of the PAC.
I used to write a lot more, but the thing that's always been the same with me, I've never really. I've always had the same style in terms of what I like to write poetry-wise or lyrics. If I'm writing,
no different to lockdowns then. It didn't change.
In lockdown really. Or no, I don't think it changed what I want from my writing, which is to kind of encapture this feeling that I have that I think is nice or like something I'll look back on and laugh. Because if I write that down and then later on I'm feeling, let's say, melancholy or nostalgic or something, it's a nice kind of glimpse into a great time in my life that I felt like writing. And that's always been the same for me. So it might be a bit of a boring answer, but
no, that's cool. We try to keep it a bit shorter. That's fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't say lockdown's really changed my approach to poetry. No.
Okay, fair enough. Nick, did any of your writing change? You were writing a novel, weren't you? So did that change during the lockdown?
No, not at all. I already knew where the start, middle, and end was going. So just to have the time to cement them all together was great. But I'm writing a load of short stories with various 5 other writers called Collaborator, and it's I write a few paragraphs, then I pass it on. They write a few paragraphs, send it back, and vice versa. So it just goes on, and we basically write a story between us. And I'm doing 5 of those at the moment, which is kind of exciting. And it's good because you don't know which way the story is going to go. When you hand it over, they can take the story in any direction, and then you've got to pick it up when they hand it back to you.
Sounds like Cover Judas.
Yeah, it's a good way of writing, actually, because it takes control of the story from you to a large degree. I mean, obviously, you can't go completely random, but so that's a good experiment. And music-wise, I'm just writing the same old shit I always do.
Okay.
And,
it's beautiful shit.
Absolutely amazing.
I will say on that matter, you did actually show me. You showed me something you've done with Is it Dom South? I think you did. You'll be doing a new collaboration. It was really cool.
Yeah, I've got a few music collaborations going on as well. Obviously, because of lockdown, my whole studio thing just went on hold. I wasn't able to source a lot of stuff I needed. I need to be able to go and see some, sound studio designers and get their input, find out what I need, and then go and source it. So I don't want to have to start buying stuff off the internet and it comes from China and turns out it's a load of shit. And it needs to be kind of good. It also needs to be something I can take apart and assemble again relatively easily. So there's a lot of spec involved.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. So I'll just briefly share, my answer to this, which is about lyrics writing. So I would say that for me, my lyrics writing definitely, I say it definitely changed. I don't really know to an extent because the thing is, like, when I write, I'm not always in the same frame of mind, as in like I'll write and as we all do. But I mean, for me in particular, my frames of mind will shift really rapidly depending on what's happening. I don't know if that's even necessarily just autism or maybe something else, but whatever. And maybe it's to do with, I don't know, I write differently if I've taken something or whatever. But it's more like, no, I don't think it was that. I don't know if it's really changed. I think maybe it's got more introspective, but I haven't written anything about lockdown specifically or anything. So no, it's not. But I do think it's maybe think more about everything. So that's basically what it is. I always want to be progressive. I always want to progress somewhere new. And I think the one good thing about the lockdowns is this new situation, and you could say that's a good thing from that perspective. Any new situation is an opportunity, as they say in some spiritual teachings, which is most likely true. Okay, so the fifth question is, which again we'll start with James and Michael. Did you find that being in the same situation as everyone else, as in like because everyone was under the same lockdown, make you feel more connected or more isolated? obviously this obviously depends on what people you are around and whatnot. But I'd definitely be very interested to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Yeah.
Well, I think in particular, like, so there were a few. I will be honest, like I was suffering with a few mental health issues. In particular, last year, I was actually like abused by an ex-flatmate of mine, which was a really horrible experience, obviously. And the police basically did nothing, so that was fun. That's not really been too great of a situation, but I think the thing that has kept me going has constantly been the people I've stayed in contact with. Like, I mean, talking to Mike, talking to you fellas, like, it's honestly given me so much more of a kick up the backside to, you know, try and work on my mental health and things like that. Because I'll be honest, like, and this is just me being very, very honest on it online, but I actually earlier on this year attempted suicide.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's a very, very deep one.
Yeah, I read that, you know, just when he was about to do it. So I'm so
it sounds like you two are like really good. You got your besties basically. You're very lucky to have.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's really thank you for sharing that. That's very poignant, but I respect that. Thank you.
It's good to see that you're doing so well, James.
Yeah.
Thank you. My hat. If I had one. Where's my hat?
Yes.
Michael, what's your how did you find it?
Like I said, the first 2 months, because with my parents, I don't get on well with them. They don't talk much, and we got issues. That was very tough. And I did feel isolated, but until then, when, like I said earlier, me and James were in a bubble, and so we had meetings, and there was like I said, I cared for him. I rang him when he needed a chat, and we grew stronger as friends, and my mental health improved as I got to know him more, because I met him at the beginning of 2020, and so we now connected, and we're leading hopefully to our new successful animation business and film business.
And we're very pleased to have you on board this as well.
Thanks. It's good to speak to you. Yeah, so it's been a good and bad experience.
It's been a difficult one sometimes.
Yeah.
But
thank you so much for sharing that, guys. Thank you.
That's
really
right.
Good. I mean, it sounds as if you know that's really good. You made something really positive out of it. So, Lawrence, how did you find it affected? Like, because again, the question is, you know, how affected your sense with other people? Like, did you feel more isolated or more, or the opposite? Did you find?
I think, like, obviously, it was more isolating, but I don't know. It was kind of like, and we've kind of said it before, but an opportunity to be social in different ways. So I think connecting online is not something I would normally really do. But then lockdown taught me the value of it, I guess. And, you know, because we had the podcasts already, we were doing them already before lockdown. We'd only done a couple. And when lockdown hit, it was very easy to just move it onto an online platform. So that smooth transition was quite nice. And it was like, oh, okay, we can still be connected. And, you know, I've known you.
Oh, that's good.
I've known you for quite a few years, Tristan, but, you know, it was really great to know Nick. Who's down there.
Yeah, man. Of course.
I think there was just little treasures within it that kept me going and kept me thinking, oh, this is actually not so bad, you know. I think what was more difficult was entering the second lockdown. Then it was like, oh, for fuck's sake, we're starting it.
Not this shit again.
And confusing too.
Because they like gave us
after. You know, it's just saying confusing as well, because we had that event at the Red Lion, then it all happened straight after that.
Yeah, we got a taste of freedom, and then they fucking like took it away for good or bad reasons. But
your sense of camaraderie varied then, basically.
I would say that, like, you know, physically it was isolating, but there were ways to challenge that, and I feel like I've developed certain communication skills a bit better because of that. So I think, like, coming out of this, because my job's going to involve a lot of online assessments and stuff, so it's going to be going to be quite good, having had a lot of experience doing that in a weird way. You know?
Thank you, Lawrence. That's really good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Brilliant. So, Nick, how did you did you feel about that? I mean, did you find you got more isolated, or the opposite? Did you get more? How did you find?
Well, obviously, I was in a bubble with you, so I saw you. Well, you were one of the people I saw most of all.
I'm grateful for that. So thanks. Yeah, it was really good actually to me.
And obviously, my niece, I'd spend time with her and a couple of members of my family, but I kind of didn't see a lot of people generally, you know. Which,
How was that?
Again, it's kind of like I had no option in it. You can't see people. You just got to kind of get on with it. And obviously it was tough, but people on phones, and I could do FaceTime with them and stuff. So I got around it. I did a survey actually prior to this.
We'll come to this in the last question. That will be really
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
That's really good. Thank you. It sounds so basically you were okay because you were able to be stoic enough to be like, okay, it's just the way it is.
Yeah,
you were able to see me and the podcast and like all that, which is.
I'm a lot older than you guys as well, so kind of.
Nah.
Not
Oh
yeah. Not in spirit.
Is that okay? Thank you, Nick. That's great. I mean, that is, so I mean, for me, I think it was my answer would be as a bit of both. Yeah, I mean, it was really isolating in the sense of literally just not even knowing what's right and wrong. As in, like, you think sometimes if you went out and if you were maybe breaking the rules or bending them a bit, is that right or wrong? You'd always have to question that. You'd have to justify it, or not justify it. Is that I found really difficult because obviously, the rules would change, which is confusing as well. It would change, and that obviously the lockdown then was the same, but then of course they would change. Well, then the lockdown ended, but then the rules were still. But then after the first lockdown ended, the rules were sort of really confusing because it was like, oh, you can see people, but you should be careful, or you should do this, or if you see someone, you
go out.
That was at that point. At that point, I'll be honest. After it ended, I was just like, I did things that I thought were reasonable, and it was fine. But I would say that it was a bit of both because, as I said, I had a couple of different experiences that sometimes it was like I would have felt really isolated. Other times, if I did hang out with people after lockdowns, I'd feel really good, and then they'd come back. I was like. The second it come back, I'd be like, "Well, what is this?" I mean, it was just the whole time there was a sense of non-reality about much of this, and that's what I found especially difficult. And that I think we could maybe touch on the last question, but no, I will briefly touch on that now because I think that's something I think people with any mental health difference or whatever can struggle with is that sense when you're by yourself as well, you can really convince yourself that. What is actually going on? Like, is any of this real? And I questioned that before the lockdowns ever happened, like years ago. I questioned that when I was 10 years old, and I watched the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I thought, what does this mean? I thought that's when I was 10. I was like, if the universe is ended, what happens now? What does that mean? Why doesn't that? If life is life inherently meaningless? So I started to ask these kind of questions from a very young age, and that's why I got into the arts. But I think the PAC, what we've done has been, and it will continue to be something incredible. We'll go more into that maybe.
That was a very interesting point you just made. You said you were questioning whether life had meaning, so you got into the arts. Was that because you wanted to find meaning, or because you'd accepted life was somewhat meaningless and you just wanted to entertain yourself?
No, I think obviously this is obviously goes back many years, but I think I don't want to go on too much of this. We've got one more question to go through, but very briefly, it was very brief answer. My very brief answer would be. I don't believe life is meaningless anyway. I think you can end up thinking it's meaningless, but as you say, you're correct to say you have to create your own meaning. I think a lot of creative people can probably resonate with this. That if I express myself, if I do my writing, my music, or something like this, anything creative, it switches on something in my brain, and then everything tends to function better. Yeah. If I don't do creative things, if I stagnate, then my mind goes more downhill. I don't know if other people have the same experiences with that, basically.
I think that's true.
For many people, it might be universal, but everyone should be more involved in the arts, which is what we're all about. Okay, well, that was really good, guys. We've got one more question, and this question relates to the very important topic of the broader picture, which is surveys. Obviously, out of respect, we're going to keep everything anonymous. We'll start with James and Michael, who have done a fair bit in doing this for us. So thank you so much for that, guys. Starting with James. So what has been? So just go ahead, share it whenever you want, however you want to do it.
I suppose in this, I'd say like one of the key things that I got from talking to a lot of people, and maybe this is reflected in the arts as well, but a lot of people have started to mistrust authority massively. You know, for example, like the police or the government, and like a lot of that is because of their like rampant hypocrisy or their inaction during like times of need. However, this could also be seen in a sense as a great thing for the arts, because one of the key things that you get from a lot of artistic people is that, like, you know, sort of fuck you attitude to like authority and things like that.
Yeah.
It allows you to sort of be very critical of these structures that we have in society and things like that, and say, how can we make them better? How can we improve them? I mean, another key thing that I got from a lot of people was that they were finding it very difficult to take care of certain, like, of their needs, for example, like mental health needs, because you couldn't keep up with people. You know, they were struggling with like simple things like cleaning up after themselves and things like that. I know it sounds crazy.
I struggle with that too sometimes, but I get that.
Definitely. I mean, you tend to find that when you're like stuck in one place constantly, you're just like, right, I'm just gonna swim in my own pig shit, basically. Like,
or try too hard to keep things clean, which is what I would do. So, what about? Have you got any? You want to share some specific examples? Because I don't know how long. Maybe or do you want to just like sort of? I don't really mind. It's up to you how you do it, really. To be honest.
Do you mean like sharing people's like names or like shit?
Not the names. That's how I respect we would do that. But you had a couple of things from a lot of people, which you again will remain nameless. But do you want to read them out or?
Yeah, one sec. Let me just get them.
I mean, if you think it's too long, then just try and summarize their points if you can.
I've got about 7 or 8, so
I'll read a brief bit. I'll read.
Just try and summarize it if you can. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, guys.
Find it.
No worries.
So one person has said to me, they're much more introverted. So, say like for example, they've like, you know, been working for weeks on end, like all day around. A lot of like research tasks have really needed that, the ability to just keep working, but the ability for them to respond to emails and other messages has declined rapidly. And speaking of what I was speaking a second ago, the capacity to tidy rarely manifests, as it were. You know. And another one basically mentioning, for example, this person specifically pointed out a lot of people's mental health struggles, for example.
That's good.
I mean, it's massively, a lot of this stuff is really quite hard hitting as well, because it's talking about, you know, how suicide, mental health, even things like treatment for cancer. I mean, all of these things have just been thrown to the wayside, and unfortunately, a lot of people have suffered because of it. You know, and it's a really interesting point that this person was bringing up, because I think that's why a lot of people have this distrust of authority at the moment. As they should.
But so I got about 9 or 10 ones, but generally, there was a lot of talk about how they use creativity to get out of it. And there's a really good example, like one person like was suffering in the second one with social anxiety, depression, and sad, but she then used that negative energy to actually work for Mind, the charity, which was really good. And she was saying, which was quite encouraging and reminded me that there are others feeling the same way about things and such. And also a lot of people use creativity to get out of it. I got one from America again of talking about power and thing, that mistrust with Trump, and they like unbelievable. Unbelievable. And they're saying there was no rules on safety, and they just spread it and left it up to the states, and basically the companies overrided that and did take safety. So There was a lot of people use they missed films and going out to the theatre and things. So yeah, it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
That's really good. Thanks, guys.
No
and so what about? I mean, have you guys got anything else? Like, did anyone you've spoken to apart from that, or was that sort of the general? Was that basically?
I mean, I think like a lot of it, we got the same sort of answers, to be fair.
Yeah, most of them were like using creativity to survive and stuff.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of social anxiety and depression and missing people.
I think a lot of people like used creativity and like the arts as like an outlet.
Yeah. All you find from all this is that people are more similar than they realise sometimes, similar struggles. So, Lawrence, how about some of your mates? I mean, obviously you know that I struggle, but I mean, you know, other people, other your mates.
Well, I haven't done a survey per se, and I'm really impressed with what you guys have done, and I'm sure Nick as well when he does his thing. What I could do is just sort of freestyle my own opinions, my own impressions from people, particularly the people very closest to me. I think creativity is key. Like for me personally, I feel more alive when I'm being creative. I don't know why, I guess my existence, I feel like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. And on top of that, I think just having a sense of humor, no matter what, like just always finding something to laugh about, and I think just having good mates around you who make you laugh and just forget about the bullshit.
Yeah.
There's more bullshit than ever. And I thought, like a couple of years ago, I was like, I don't think there could be any more bullshit. And then,
so naive, Lawrence. So naive.
What happened? So I think, just maintaining this idea that life is funny, like essentially, what this existence is. Like, who the fuck knows what, whatever, but just finding something creative to do and good people to laugh at it with.
Bad people to laugh at. No, I'm joking.
So what about but in terms of your experience of other people and how they were affected by it is kind of.
Well, I think I've got mates who have varying degrees of what they believe COVID is and how serious it is. But I think everyone's been affected mentally on some level. But I think not being able to hang out, I think it meant when we did hang out, we really enjoyed each other's company. Just because it was so much more limited. So as I say, I think just the positivity of the whole thing and not letting it get you down in the dumps or digging a hole. I think that was really the main thing I experienced with my mates generally. I know, Tristan, you're living on your own and you're quite far out. So I know you struggled a bit with meeting up with people because you're in the fucking sticks out there. But there's just a good community of people, around in Richmond and Kingston, and I feel blessed that look after each other.
Yeah, it's good.
So that's really my impression of it. I think how
from other people, basically. Yeah. Okay.
We've all sort of looked out for each other.
That's really important.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lawrence. So Nick, I mean, obviously you probably, as we've said many times, you probably know in some ways the most people of anyone I've met. So you must have a few experiences of people with very different ways of being affected by it.
Yeah, I've got people all across the board that have either enjoyed it or to the other extreme, completely had a nightmare throughout the whole thing. My mum was one of them. My mum hasn't dealt with it particularly well because obviously she lost her husband the year before my dad, and she was striving for company. She wanted company all the time, and she didn't have that sort of thing. So they would go there and see her and stuff, but some of my friends, especially those in the entertainment industry, found it particularly hard when their whole life is kind of built around sort of, I've got a friend of mine who's a stage manager for all big acts. Dom Dry goes all around the world with people like Lily Allen and Anastasia and all those sort of people, Coldplay and all that. And his whole world is just touring, and that's just completely gone.
Yeah.
So I know he was suffering. So I put out a bit of a survey and asked him the questions basically that you asked. Everyone thought the lockdown was reasonable that I asked. Everyone thought it was reasonable and necessary. So there was nothing there. But I had a mixed response on how did you first cope. A few people have said they had too much alcohol. I actually sent it all out to creative people. So I went for a composer, film director, video director, singer, a couple of artists, and a few other people in different sort of fields. And so the response I'm getting, I'm a mixture of those sort of people. A friend of mine who's DJ said he had to keep his kids entertained all the time because they were all off school. So he dealt with it mainly by busy doing that sort of stuff, you know, which is good. A lot of people had a lot of family time, and because obviously the kids were off school. So those people who were in isolation with their family got a lot of time, spend a lot more time and reap the benefits of that. Yeah. He also goes on to say that because he's a DJ, he's used to be playing like big venues and parties and stuff like that. And he's got his own business, so all of that completely went out the window for him. And so that was a complete shock. It meant he spent more time with his family, but as his job was anyway, he worked in the evenings, so he always kind of had his days free anyway. So and a few other people have said. A mate of mine who is actually an artist, he said that he dealt with it. He was sad, alone, and going slowly insane. He went from being very productive to doing absolutely nothing. And so to forcing himself to finish albums and paintings were hard from the lockdown. But he said it's made him a lot more honest. As a result of it, he's actually become, you know, really honest with people, and so it makes people may feel uncomfortable, but that's a positive in his book. Okay, I know a friend of mine who's a musician, and basically he just went and did, instead of doing his live stuff, so that he went and started making videos of his own songs and stuff, and throwing himself into that, doing a lot of stuff with green screens. But he gave him that time. So again, he was just throwing himself into creativity. You know, there's a lot of that I'm getting from people that, you know, even though they weren't performing to vast crowds, they were still kind of getting something, some sort of feather in their caps, ticking some sort of box where that's concerned. A lot of people are concerned with the way the industry is going, although there does seem to be light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. A lot of people did sort of online teaching stuff as well, and obviously sort of Zoom meetings and stuff, that similar stuff to what we were doing with the forums and that. So people managed to keep sort of their creative flows going in that respect. Yeah. So it's a mixed bag for me. If I was to say, out of the 10 or so responses I get, I say 50% of those people took a positive sort of learning from the experience, where the others actually found it quite hard. And these are also, none of the people I sent these to, Tristan, have any kind of mental health problems that I know of. So I was actually just, you know, sending it to people who didn't have pre-existing conditions.
Okay, that's
so it's kind of a 50-50 split. I'd say it, you know, it probably slightly more towards if you're going to count the people that just had a lot of time getting drunk, I'd say it's slightly more on the positive side of things. But the first lockdown was easy, wasn't it? We had lovely weather. You know, you couldn't complain with that. You know, if you've got a garden or a park nearby, you're able to get out and sit there and enjoy it that way, you know.
Yeah.
But there's people who haven't got that sort of luxury. But yeah.
Yeah, or people like me who have felt trapped inside by OCD and stuff, which is the reason why I was, which is hard. But I'm working on fixing that one. Having that it could definitely contribute to a sense of unreality. I can tell you that. If you spend all day in all the time and just start looking at the computer screen and whatever. But
see, that doesn't help anyway. Looking at computer screens all day.
No, I know.
That's not good. That's not good for you at all. I try to to minimise the amount of technology I use.
Before we end, can I ask one question just to everyone?
Yeah.
Are you surprised by how we've responded to lockdown and the new normal, as they call it, as a society? Or was it more or less what you expected we would do?
Well, for the first thing, a caveat to that, Lawrence, is that everyone responded differently, didn't they? So it's like...
Yeah, but what I mean is, like, generally, I mean, I have a mate who thinks we were all weirdly compliant, and he thought there would be a lot more resistance, you know. So,
I think there is a lot of resistance though when you actually look into. I mean, look at the illegal raves that happen or things like that. Like a lot of people.
But even they were down from what they normally are.
Yeah. Illegal raves are down! Hooray!
I think disease makes people fearful, right? Okay, people are scared. That's what my answer would be. People are scared of disease. They're fearful of disease. So, like, I guess, and they feel guilty about making people ill. So they're more likely to either do those things in moderation, if they're going to do them at all, or they won't do them, or they just, don't do them. I mean, I guess it really depends on who you live with. If you only live with our young people and you do something like that, I don't even necessarily think it's completely wrong in my view. I mean, that's subject to the debate. But if you live only with other young people, you're only going to be endangering someone if you, in theory, go and pass someone on the street who is elderly. It's hard. You never know. That's the thing. You never know, and it's never knowing. So it is an interesting question, Lawrence. Yeah. What are the best do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of people got paranoid, and others were like really rebelling and just didn't believe it from the missing.
Yeah, all got paranoid and rebelled. Both, It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
I just find the whole thing really bizarre.
I find the extreme end.
Trust fucking no one. Trust fucking no one.
I don't anyway, so it's all good.
I don't trust the media or any government to be fair. So, I take everything with a pinch of salt. I'm just following the rules because I've got to.
I take everything with a fucking heaping mound of salt, mate.
But Nick, you did say earlier that you thought. You saying you just did it because you were following rules, but because you had to. But you did say earlier that you did see there being some point to it as well. So,
well, I understand how it works, but it's. I know if the shops aren't open, you can't go to them, can you? If the pubs aren't open, you can't go to them.
No.
You're kind of forced into compliance anyway.
It's strange,
and then but sometimes for the sake of not upsetting the apple cart, it's just it's. Okay, I'll stay in. I won't go out because you're going to go mad if I go and meet some friends on the green or blah, blah. So, just for the sake of a quiet life, it was there had to be a bit of kind of give and take.
Yeah,
and I said, it wasn't like I didn't have anything to occupy myself with. But, I think generally people have had to deal with it as best they can, and it's not been easy for anyone. So certain people it's been extremely difficult for. But I don't know.
Okay.
It's been almost like an interesting, chapter of humanity that we'll look back on it and go, fuck it.
What annoys me though is I'd like to see a kind of a continuation, because they say life imitates art and vice versa. But I'd like to have seen that the soaps continue. I don't watch soaps, but with people wearing masks, like it actually existed. So there was some sort of historical sort of reality planted in there that maybe
do that. I'd have thought they would have done that. No.
They do in the hospital programs.
Okay. Oh, that makes
they've done casualty and things.
Yes, thank you so much. That was really introspective, interesting, and powerful. And I think to end very briefly, one thing I will say is that obviously everyone's mental health was affected by the lockdown differently. That's very clear. I want this to spark debate. That's a great thing. So anyone who is watching this, who has watched this when you see this on YouTube, please leave a comment. Subscribe to us and talk to us. We're on Facebook as Progressive Arts Collective, and on Instagram. Though we're currently still looking for someone to manage that. So that's a bit on the. Nick is handling PAC t-shirts, which are now available.
They're going to be special designs on some of them as well. So, but I'll keep you all informed.
Artwork done by the amazing meeting Chris Moody, a good friend of ours who we met and connected with primarily due to this.
Amazing artist, I've got to say.
He's phenomenal. Chris is incredible. So big shout out to Chris. Chris is amazing. We love you, Chris. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to end the recording here, unless you've got something to say with you, James. Yes.
I just want to say, like, during the lockdown, obviously everyone, as you say, is suffering with mental health crises. Please look out for one another. Because that's the only way we're going to get through this. Like, peace and love to everyone, basically.
Please talk to each other.
Solid.
All right. Well, that was amazing, guys. I'm going to end the recording here. We can chat a bit though. So thanks so much, guys. See you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.